Lesson 2.6, Dividing Decimals. In this lesson, you will learn to divide decimals. Key idea, dividing decimals by whole numbers. Place the decimal point in the quotient above the decimal point in the dividend. Then divide as you would with whole numbers. Continue until there is no remainder. And you can see an example there where the decimal in the dividend and the decimal in the quotient are directly lined up. Example 1, dividing decimals by whole numbers. Find 7.6 divided by 4. 7.6 divided by 4. The decimal in my dividend is between the 7 and the 6, 7.6, so that is exactly straight above is where I'll put it in my quotient. Now I can divide as normal. Dirty monkeys smell bad helps me remember. I divide first. How many 4s are there in 7? There's 1. Multiply. 4 times 1 is 4. Subtract. 7 minus 4 is 3. And bring down. The next number is 6. Repeat. Divide again. 4 into 36, 9 times. Multiply. 4 times 9 is 36. Subtract. There's nothing to bring down and no remainder, so my answer is 1.9. To check and see if this answer is reasonable, I look back at my problem and say that 7.6 is close to 8 divided by 4. I know that basic fact is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 1.9 is close to 2, so my answer is reasonable. Looking at problem B, 4.38 divided by 12. The decimal is right here between the 4 and the 3, putting it directly above for my quotient. And then I begin. How many 12s are there in 4? There are no groups of 12 in 4. How many groups of 12 are there in 43? There are 3 groups of 12 in 43. 3 times 12 is 36. Subtract. 43 minus 36 is 7. Next step is to bring down. How many groups of 12 are there in 78? There are 6. 6 times 12 is 72. Subtract. There is no number to bring down. However, I still have a remainder, so I can add another 0 there. How many groups of 12 are there in 60? There are 5, which is 60. And now I have no remainder. 0.365 is the quotient. Key idea, dividing decimals by decimals. Multiply the divisor and the dividend by a power of 10 to make the divisor a whole number. Then place the decimal point in the quotient and divide as you would with whole numbers. Continue until there is no remainder. In the example, 4.56 divided by 1.2, you would multiply both the divisor and the dividend by 10 in order to move the decimal place one place value over and make that 1.2 into a 12. You can do this. It's the same idea as when you multiply the numerator and denominator of a fraction by the same number. Multiplying the divisor and the dividend by a power of 10 does not change the quotient. Example 2, dividing decimals. Find 18.2 divided by 1.4. 18.2 is my dividend, my divisor 1.4. So the first step is to get my divisor 1.4 to be a whole number. In order to do that, I need to move this decimal one place to the right, which in effect is multiplying by 10. Doing that multiplication of 10 to my divisor means that I also need to do that to my dividend. Multiplying by 10 to my dividend changes the decimal 1 to the right, changing 18.2 into 182. So technically there is a decimal here now. Since it's at the end of a whole number, it's not necessary, but for our practice here, I'm going to put the decimal straight up because that's where it would go if it were not at the end of a number. You would still move it straight up. So now my problem has become 182 divided by 14, and I can divide as usual. Looking at my divisor 14, I know there are no groups of 14 in 1, but in 18 there is one group of 14. 14 times 1 is 14. Subtract. 18 minus 14 is 4. And bringing down that 2, 14 goes into 42 3 times. 3 times 14 is 42. Subtract. There's nothing more to bring down. So I technically could put a 0 here. There are no groups of 14 left. 13.0 and 13 are both equivalent. 13, 13.0. So that is not necessary, but it is okay if you'd like to put it there. Checking my work now just to make sure this is accurate, I could say that 13 times 1.4 hopefully will get me back to 18.2 if I changed my divisor back to 1.4. So 4 times 3 is 12. Regrouping up, 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. My place value for the tens. 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 times 1 is 1. Adding now, 2 plus 0 is 2, 5 plus 3 is 8, and 1 with nothing else brings down 1. Now keeping in mind when I'm multiplying, I'm going back to the factor that has the decimal, and there's only 1 this time, and it's 1 place value. So I come back down to my product and move my decimal 1 place value. And I have 18.2, which is where we started. So that quotient checks. Question B, find 0.273 divided by 0.39. That's 273 thousandths divided by 39 hundredths. 0.273 divided by 0.39. It's important that you remember in division, as in subtraction, that the order matters. So when you're dividing by something, that is the divisor that you need to put on the outside of the radical sign. Now I'm looking at my divisor, 0.39 or 39 hundredths, and I have to move that decimal so that the 39 becomes a whole number. I can do that by multiplying by 100, which moves my decimal 2 to the right. Doing that to the divisor means I also need to do that to my dividend. Moving that 2 decimal places to the right brings it in right there and makes my dividend now be 27.3. And it's okay to have a decimal in my dividend. It's the divisor that we want to be a whole number. So now my problem has become 27.3 divided by 39. I know there are no groups of 39 in 0, and there are no groups of 39 in 2, and there are no groups of 39 in 27. But I know there are some groups of 39 in 273, and I believe there are 7. And the reason I think that is because I know that 7 times 9 is 63, and that would give me the ending number, so I just need to verify the rest. So 39 times 7, 63, 21 plus 6 is 27. 39 times 7 is 273. Subtract, nothing more to bring down. So the quotient for this problem is 0.7, and I really should put a 0 in front of the decimal just to hold that place value, because a decimal is sometimes easy to overlook, and it may look like a 7 there if I don't have that decimal place there. Example 3, inserting zeros in the dividend and in the quotient. Divide 2.45 divided by 0.007. Again, 2.45 is my dividend, my divisor 0.007. And this time we are working on adding zeros in the dividend and the quotient. If you look at your divisor, I have 1, 2, 3 place values. I need to move that, which means I'm multiplying by 1,000. If I move that decimal 3 places in my dividend, I need to do the same in my divisor. So I need to multiply 2.45 by 1,000, which would move that decimal 3 places to the right. 1 place, 2 places. And now I need to add a 0 in here in order to move that decimal the 3rd place over. So my decimal now would be right here at the end. Now my problem has become 2,450 divided by 7, and I can divide as normal. There are no groups of 7 and 2, but in 24 there are 3 groups of 7. 7 times 3 is 21. Subtracting would give me a 3. Bringing down that next 5. 7 into 35 would go 5 times. 7 times 5 is 35. Subtracting and bringing down my last 0. There are no groups of 7 in 0. Multiplying, subtracting, nothing more to bring down. Technically, then, the decimal would be right here, straight up. And I could put another 0 on the end of that, but again, it's not necessary. If the numbers following the decimal are all 0, that really doesn't need to be there, and you can just stop with the 350. Example 4, real-life application. How many times more cellular phone subscribers were there in 2011 than in 1991? Round to the nearest whole number. Looking at the graph, I see that in 2011 there were 331.59 million subscribers. In 1991 there were 7.6 million subscribers. I want to know how many times more. That means I need to do a division. So my problem becomes 331.59 divided by 7.6. That will tell me how many more times. I want my divisor to become a whole number, so I need to multiply it by 10 to move the decimal place 1 to the right. Doing that to my divisor means I also need to do that to my dividend. Moving the decimal 1 to the right would place it right here between the 5 and the 9. Now I can divide as normal. 76. How many groups of 76 are there in 3? There are none. In 33, there are none. In 331, I believe there would be 4 groups of 76 in 331. 76 times 4 will be 304. Subtracting 331 minus 304 would give me 27. I would need to regroup here. Bringing down my 5. How many groups of 76 are there in 275? I believe there are 3. 3 times 76 is 228. Regrouping here. Will give me 47. And bringing down the 9. How many groups of 76 are in 479? I believe there are 6. Notice I'm putting the numbers in my quotient directly above where I'm dividing through. 6 times 76 is 456, which leaves me with 23. Now if I were dividing all the way through till there was no remainder, I would need to bring down another 0 and continue on. But this says round to the nearest whole number because we're talking about subscribers, so whole people. I can see right here that I have 43.6. That's 6/10. 6/10 is larger than half of a person, which would be 5/10. So I'm going to round that to 44. 44 times more people. subscribed in 2011, then in 1991.